Hey everybody, Andrew from FindYourFuels.com back again to be of help to you today. And today I might take a little bit extra time, but I'd like to share something that I found doing some research, because we of course help individuals find out how they're going to fit into the career world. We help educators train their people so that they are prepared. And we've had a lot of services that we were just imagining would be very readily absorbed by employers, because of course you want people that you want around to do the jobs that you need to get done. You want to at least be able to have some fun and enjoy being in the presence of the people who are accomplishing the tasks you need completed. That would seem to make sense. But what we've understood through our research is that employers are in a little bit of a different situation that many of you might not be aware of. And that situation is this. Now, this is of course an arrow. An arrow is one of the earliest forms of projectile weaponry. Obviously there's a more modern form of projectile weaponry that would be instructive, but with the illustration I'm about to give, you'll be able to see why I can't use that. Because basically this is the situation of the employers. That as much as we want to have a wonderful conversation and say, "Hi, my name's Andrew, I'm here to apply for this job. I'd love to speak with you, and I'd really love to make your workplace a better situation," I can be absolutely honest in this situation. I can be truly there for their benefit, but I might not be the one to pull the trigger. It might be their manager. It might be litigation. It might be employment law that they have to get around. Let me tell you a little bit about what we found. There are people throughout history who feel like they should have been qualified for a job, or they saw someone else hired that they thought was less likely to get the job in front of them, and they felt that something was done to keep them out of that job, or discrimination. Now, if I felt that way, if I felt someone got the job because they knew somebody that I didn't, and I was much more qualified for the job, for me to approach a lawyer and say, "Hey, this opportunity was stolen from me, and I think something should be done about it," this is what they would tell you. Now, I'm of course not offering any legal advice. This is just my understanding from a layman's perspective. Do not take anything what I'm saying and put it to use, of course. But the situation is basically this, as I understand it, that if I want to sue, if I want to have damages repaired to me because I felt I should have gotten that job over the other person, it's nearly impossible for me as an individual to actually succeed in that, because I would have to have a full understanding of all of their hiring practices to the point where I can showcase on paper that I was specifically discriminated against in this case. However, and this is where our lovely friend, comes back into play. However, if I talk to the lawyer and the lawyer says, this company kind of has some pretty deep pockets, how likely would it be if you could find 100 of your friends? I don't have 100 friends. Well, but other people were applying for that job, right? What if we put out a radio ad and said, "Hey, if you were trying to apply for this job and you felt passed over between these dates, give us a call. You may be a part of a lump sum settlement of X amount." And that X amount is always very enticing. Because here's how the situation changes when you have a bunch of friends with you and they all feel that they got passed over for that job and there was no good reason for it. Where it was almost impossible for me to prove that you were discriminating against me, now that I've found a few of my friends, it's nearly impossible legally for the employer to prove that they did not discriminate. The same thing that protected the employer now damns them in this situation. And we've heard of settlements from $200,000 to $900,000 in just the little bit of research we did, but let me tell you about more of the $900,000 one. So there was 100 people who felt discriminated against. They all had this class action lawsuit, and the employer could not disprove the claim because it's nearly impossible to do so. So they had to go back and choose 17 of these 100 people that just sued you, hire them, pay them back to the point that they actually applied with interest. Now, this is a discrimination case. So if you just got sued by 100 people and you now had to hire 17 of them, and pay them back to the date that they applied for the position, how's that doing relationally? Are you happy that this person is working with you? And now that they're here, how fun will it be to try to get them to quit or get fired? How near impossible will that task be? Because they already tried to prove in a court case that you discriminated against them, and most likely you didn't even go to the court with it. You probably just settled out of court because you realized even if you could disprove it, you'd lose so much time and energy and money trying to prove the unprovable, because it's, most largely subjective and people's interpretations. Once again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not providing legal advice. But I am trying to get you to understand a little bit of the world that employers are facing. That as nice as you're trying to be in your employment pursuits, there are certain questions that they just cannot ask. But they are the questions that we'd all want to ask if we were endeavoring to build a work relationship with somebody. Do we enjoy each other's presence? Does it feel like we're going to get along? Because at the end of the day, a job is a work relationship. And you don't enter a relationship, I hope, with someone on the first date to say, okay, how many kids do you want? Where do you want to live? I'm going to work with this job. You better be darn well, used to that. I take off every Saturday and go fishing. You don't have those conversations on the first date. Those are things that you hope will work out once you're around someone that you already enjoy their presence. So for workplaces, since those same relational principles apply to the workplace, in the interview process, they can't ask those questions, because unless they can legally prove that the thing that you do not do is absolutely, provably essential to the performance of that task, they cannot say no. Even if your personality is abhorrent, and they feel that you would not do well with their customer base or with your coworkers, they can't consider that. At least if they're under litigation, they can't use that as evidence. If the job is, finding information, reading reports, filing reports, typing, sorting, they have to boil it down to the absolute physical elements of the job. Like parts of my job, I have to drive to get to my clients. I have to speak their language. I have to make phone calls and operate machinery. I have to fill out reports and file them. We're not even talking about the culture that I want my customers to experience, because I can't legally look to that. Or at least if a lawsuit comes against me, I'm stuck out on a limb. I can't talk about workplace culture. I can't hire for personality. I can't have any of the pieces of conversation that any of you would have on a first date. Because in our attempt to create an equal workplace, we have created a monster. We have created a hellish situation where if you want to know why jobs aren't just flowing through your streets, look to your lawsuits. Look to the world that your employer lives in. I can't tell you how many times I have wanted to hire somebody because I think they would add value to our organization and create a situation where they can make both of us money. But I can't do it because I'm not interested in investing the time, resources, and energy to having situations at those times where I could have employees. Because that means disability, and that means workers' comp, and that means liability and insurance and paperwork upon paperwork upon paperwork, and being prepared for possible audits, and hiring someone who ends up not being absolutely perfect, and I have to fire them and go through and have all the documentation as to why I fired them and all the different things I did. It's hell. And that's why most jobs are not available currently, I would imagine, especially on the smaller business scale. So how do we avoid this situation? Well, it's difficult. Honestly, I don't have a huge amount of answers on that. Today's video is mostly to inform you as to what some of your employers are facing. And that really is the solution, at least in part, understanding what they're going through and doing your own part to do your own research, because there's nothing illegal about you doing your own research. There's nothing illegal about you, the future prospective employee, about seeing if it's a good fit. And if you can do your homework, to understand who you are, what you bring, and what would be a good relational fit. If you can do the research on your own, if you really want that job, understand the situation that these employers are facing. That even if you're a great little solution for their problems, they can go through a world of hurt if they use the common everyday relational principles that you and I use for friendships and romantic relationships. So do your homework, help your local employer. Please be understanding of the world that we're living in and the amount of damage that lawsuits can bring to our livelihoods, as we're just trying to honestly serve our customers, hire good people, and go home at the end of the day. Thanks. Hope that's been a help to you. We'll see you soon. Talk to you later. Bye.